Hello and welcome to Successful Women in Healthy Relationships. By far one of the most outstanding topics that has so many incredible facets to it. And I am very excited to dive in with you to get you set up for success so that you can literally have the relationships that you're in every area of your life being in service to your continued growth and expansion as a woman who is continuing to deepen and soften more into her own feminine power. This week, we're going to be talking about your relationship with yourself. That's where it all begins. It's so important for you to trust yourself, to honor your femininity, and to not be driving yourself so hard at work when you're at work. And being a woman entrepreneur is really and truly the most dynamic and fantastic path of personal development. You will be pushed to your edges in so many different areas. So having a healthy relationship with yourself first is going to give you the tools and the abilities to be able to communicate, not from a place of desperation, not from a place of feeling abandoned or feeling like the victim. It is going to completely and totally lend itself to you showing up powerfully in all of your personal and professional relationships so that you can get what you need when you need it and be able to speak your truth about what you need to be your best self in every relationship, whether that's in your business or in your personal life or with your romantic partner or with your family. It is a very challenging thing to be a woman entrepreneur sometimes. And a lot of times people in your life don't get it. Even when you're bringing on team, they don't really understand what it is to be the center person in the business that you run. And so being able to communicate your needs and your desires and literally be able to articulate how having them met would be for you, what would that look like, how would it make you feel, and how would it contribute to who you are as a whole woman. The majority of women have not been brought up with these skills and these concepts, and so I really want to anchor this in for you and help you with this because this is the most instrumental relationship to all of the other relationships in your life. And I know that I wasn't brought up being taught how to honor my femininity or to speak my truth or to be in touch with the parts of myself and have a level of emotional intelligence to be able to articulate to myself, let alone to others, which is why I am so passionate about this exact topic. My journey of returning to myself and really caring for myself and beginning to honor myself and exercise these different practices that I know accelerate your journey back to being in integrity with yourself and loving and honoring yourself so that the relationships outside of you mirror that to you instead of you feeling discouraged or broken down or criticized and judged. You will know how to hold your energy and hold yourself regardless of anyone outside of you. Everyone else's opinion is their opinion. It truly has nothing to do with you. So back when I was married in 2007, my children were 4 and 1, and my whole world came crashing apart. I thought that everything was so wonderful and perfect in my life with my children and the perceived reality that was in existence at that time. And in hindsight, I can recognize that while I was, yes, indeed, living some of what the dream in my own heart was, that some of the dream was someone else's. It was what society conditioned a lot of people to do, which is go to college, get married, have children. It's what I was brought up with. And while yes, I was living my dream at that time, I was so disconnected with so many different parts of myself. And as life would have it, the universe will always step in on your behalf to get you back into alignment. And so at the time, I had found out that my husband was lying to me about a few different things, and I knew that he had a drinking problem. And I went away on a vacation with him and my two sons. And I went down to the beach, and I came up from the beach, and my sons had just finished napping. And he had been drinking, and I confronted him about it, and he lied about it. And then he started becoming really angry, and it erupted into a really volatile argument to the point where I had to pack up my two children and drive home. And I literally drove home to parents who were blaming me and telling me that I needed to go to marriage therapy as if I was married to myself. This was, to say the least, one of the biggest monumental moments in my life. And I hadn't started my coaching business at this point, but it was a wake-up call and a pathway for me to get back to, or rather come to for the first time in my life ever, a place of honoring myself, recognizing myself, getting myself up out of codependency that was really not in service to anyone for that matter. And one day I remember sitting in my bedroom. I was probably sitting on the floor crying, because I did a lot of that back when this all took place, because I felt like my entire world had fallen apart and I didn't quite know what to do or where to find myself. And I certainly didn't feel like I had any support. And I was asking myself questions like, what was it, Rebecca, that you felt like he did to you that was so awful? And I sat with that and got really honest with myself. And I heard a voice say, rejection and abandonment. And I'm adopted, so I have core wounds of abandonment and rejection. And those are also your opportunity to grow forward in your soul's path to heal those wounds. And this was definitely the invitation of the century. This was my dark night of the soul. And so the next question that came, and at this point I was not quite sure where these questions were coming from, but the next question that came was, where are you abandoning and rejecting yourself? That kind of blew the doors off of my universe, because it was a self-empowerment question. Up until this point in my life, in hindsight and in the moment of this asking these questions, I realized that I was playing the role of the victim, and that it was working for me, and that we as a society, especially as women, get into this position of seeing who can be the most pathetic. And it's like, why did we get into that kind of a competition? And it's literally to be better than or worse than someone else. And it's a completely disempowering stage. And if you ever find yourself there, I invite you to make a stand and make a commitment to not go there anymore. So what happened for me after this incident and this very eye-opening question of where I am abandoning and rejecting myself, I began to do some self-inquiry, and I began to do some self-exploration, and I began to study very in-depth self-love practices, self-care practices, self-compassion practices, and literally was so committed to healing the abandonment and the rejection. It really and truly is no one else's job to heal those core wounds but your own. This is your soul's path, and this is what you came here to heal and bring into wholeness and literally return to your wholeness, because you are divinely born in perfection and wholeness. And no one else is ever going to come along and take a stand for you. No one else is ever going to come along and say, look, you really need to fix your relationship with yourself. I mean, you might have a coach or a mentor or someone kind of point it out, but the truth of the matter is that you're the only one who's going to do the practices and take the action steps towards that. And so I began my journey of literally what I would call returning to the truth of who I am. And in that, I began to disengage from so much codependence. And what was happening was this incredible power and feminine empowerment began to open up and blossom, because I was working on daily practices that I still do today. They were a little different then. They were more intense and they were new, so they were kind of wonky. So as you practice these different things that are going to get you back to being in integrity with yourself and being in your own feminine power so that you can be a successful woman in a healthy relationship, in every relationship, that know that it might feel a little wonky at first, and that's okay. And so I began to do mirror exercises and telling myself out loud, I love you, Rebecca. I see you, you matter, and you make a difference. Our self-talk is one of the most powerful tools that is either working towards our benefit or it is literally ripping us to shreds. And as women, the voice that goes on in the head about how you could have done it better or how you messed up so bad, it is so mean. And if you spoke it out loud or if you spoke it to a child, I wouldn't be surprised if Child Protective Services or some kind of an agency didn't come along and remove that child from your care because you were speaking so violently. So I really want you to do a check-in right now. You know the deepest, darkest places in your head of where you chastise yourself or where you judge yourself or where you shame yourself or guilt yourself or blame yourself. And I am here to tell you that that is the most disempowering place that you can be in any given moment. And it's not to say that something doesn't happen and we're not like, oh, I should have made a better decision or I could have done this or whatever it is. That the less you do that and the more you practice these self-care practices and self-love practices, the more you'll be in integrity with yourself, and there won't be these different pieces of yourself that are literally discombobulated and you've got a battle going on in your head about I shouldn't do this and I shouldn't do that, or and there's like a fight going on in your head, and it's time for you to quiet those voices and rise up into your most highest and esteemed version of yourself so that you can operate in a different place. You need to operate from a place of stability and significance. And when you do that with yourself, it is a natural extension to go into relationships with other people, prioritizing honoring what's true for you, prioritizing what is best for you as a business owner, and what are the right next steps that you need to take. So right now in this moment, I want you to think about what are the vows that you make to yourself. You know, going back to the story of being told that I was needing to go to college and get married and have children, we're taught so early on to go get married when we don't even know ourselves and we haven't even let alone heard of this concept of making a vow to yourself. So this is your invitation to think about, what do I vow to myself? Do I vow to myself that I'm going to exercise every day and put healthy foods and fluids into my body? Do you vow to yourself to wake up and have a mirror practice and sit with yourself and honor yourself and have positive self-talk that will lend itself to you being a better version of yourself? When you're in angst in your head with yourself, it will come out. You will lash out at other people that you're in relationship with. You'll have a shorter temper at work and you'll have a shorter tolerance for the people that are in your life. And so when you are continuously speaking to yourself in a loving way and honoring yourself and keeping the vows that you make to yourself, you will cultivate self-trust, and you will have self-trust instead of self-betrayal. Self-betrayal is one of the greatest places of pain for a woman. And that is one of the things that I'm so passionate about women not doing, because it feels so awful. And the problem is that typically when women are doing that, they suffer in their own silence. And quite frankly, it's time for all women to stop suffering in their own silence. There is no empowerment there, and there is no ability to be of service to anyone else. When you work on healing your relationship with yourself, you have the ability to show up as a powerful demonstration of what it looks like for a woman to love herself and to claim that love out loud and to demonstrate it and inspire other women to do the same. When a woman is filled up and she is fulfilled and she feels and is abundant from a place of self-love, from a place of financial capabilities, from all of these different places that are massively critical to you being in your highest version of yourself, she has the ability, and you do too, to go out and help in a greater way. It is not of service to go out and help when you are doing it from an empty and broken well. It's not going to land the same. When a woman shows up in her energy from a rich place, from that feminine fortune place, from living the rich life from the inside out, it is completely different. The ripple effect is different. The impact is different. How the other people feel is different. And I know that you want that, not only for yourself, but to go out and give it to someone else. Right now, your job is to stay focused on how you can continue to fill yourself up on a regular daily basis and stay true to the vows that you've made to yourself so that you can continue to cultivate that self-trust and be in full alignment and in integrity with yourself. That way you go into your relationships, with your professional relationships and your personal relationships, from a rich place, from a powerful place, and from a feminine place.